The What to Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Laura and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show. Hi, Lauren. Welcome to What to Next podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a writer based in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm the author of Lunar Love, which is my debut romantic comedy. I love books, movies, and food. And when I have time, which is rare nowadays, I run my blog, A Dash of Cinema, where I make the food that you see in movies. It's food inspired by movies. And I have a writing, culinary, and tech background.
Oh my gosh, I gotta talk about. So first of all, so I'm assuming movies were your passion, were your gateway to rom-coms and whatnot. So what has been the favorite dish that you have created? Let's go with that.
Sure. So I, for A Dash of Cinema, I loved making, it's called Cinnabuns of Steel, which is inspired by Legally Blonde. And, I'm sorry, it's inspired by Clueless. It's inspired by Clueless.
Either way, equally great movies. I'm not mad. Either way, equally great movies. So
yes, for the Legally Blonde, I did do white chocolate truffles with strawberry, so powdered strawberry. So for Clueless, I did Cinnabuns of Steel because there's a reference to that in the movie, and I made homemade sprinkles, and they're surprisingly easy to make. You just mix up a lot of sugar and you pipe long strips, then you break them apart. So it had coffee and cinnamon inside, and then sprinkled with a glaze and sprinkles and edible star glitter.
oh my gosh, that sounds so good. And then I remember that at Buns of Steels, which is a very 90s reference of like
Yes.
aerobics of the 90s. Like that was like what people were watching. That was their Peloton.
Totally.
Peloton was Buns of Steels in the 90s and Jane Fonda in the 80s, but Buns of Steels was the big one.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And so what inspired you? Like, were you a kid growing up and like found movies to be kind of like the escape, or was it something, like you were sneaking in, you were like, you're not supposed to watch these, but I'm gonna make sure I watch them all.
That was me in Greece. I was like watching that way too early.
Yeah.
And so movies definitely were an escape. And they also, for me, were just a way to kind of learn about love before I could really read like romance novels and things like that. And so I loved romantic comedies, and I was actually a film major in college. And so I just really gravitated toward that. One of my thesis was on the grand gesture. And so I think it really formed a lot of how I viewed love. And I think it's really interesting how the genre has evolved over time in romantic comedy movies, but also in the genre of the novel, romance and romantic comedies. And so it's all very formative. I watched a lot of it during my formative years. So I'm impressioned from it.
Yeah, I am sad that the romantic comedy, although they try to do resurgence, and I'm still mad about the whole Netflix and Nancy Meyer romantic comedy debacle. But I'm sad that, like I don't know about you, but I grew up I was born in the 80s, but I grew up in like my formative years were the 90s and the aughts. And so there were so many. There were teenage movies, there were like the grown-up ones, there was a little bit of everything. And like every month, every week there'll be like a brand new one. And it was like the golden year of romantic comedy.
Yeah. Absolutely. We need another resurgence.
We do. So I don't know. Netflix needs to get it together and give her all the budget that she needs. I don't care. Like I'll do a GoFundMe. I'll donate, or Kickstarter.
I think a lot of her viewers would donate.
Yeah.
We need more Nancy Meyers.
We need one more Nancy Meyers. Like, we don't have Nora Ephron. We might as well get that,
Sadly, it's true.
So it's kind of like an interesting, because romantic comedies are having resurgence in publishing. That's what's selling. That's what people are looking for. That's what's introducing many young readers to romance. It's romantic comedies. It's this beautiful illustrated covers with with a touch of a little bit of like, they're more diverse. They're more they talk about issues like real life issues and stuff like
Yep.
that that's happening. So it's a new resurgence, but you're in it, you know? So what led you to start writing fiction as opposed to maybe being a filmmaker? You know?
Yeah. So I do writing as my day job as well, and it's a little bit more technical and rooted in kind of more nonfiction. And
Mhm.
so to find that creative outlet, I gravitated toward fiction, and I grew up writing just kind of stories in the conference rooms where my parents worked, and it was my way to escape and my way to dream and imagine. I just never really imagined that I could do it as a career. And
Mhm.
so when I wanted that outlet and I felt a need to express myself, I really gravitated toward writing fiction and romantic comedies, where, as I mentioned before, I'd grown up on them and really felt like I was writing it for myself at first, where I didn't have a lot of representation or people who looked like me or my family in the media growing up, whether it was in books or movies. And so that was a really important part of it for me when I was starting to write the first versions of Lunar Love, where I wanted to see that. I was hungry for that representation. And then that's when I started to kind of realize that maybe it could become something more. And that's when I started to query and for agents and did it the old fashioned way. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I love it as an outlet. And as you mentioned, being able to talk about real life stuff, whether it's heavy or it's happy, where there's love, there's loss, and life, there's death, and light, there's darkness. And I think that is a really interesting topic to talk about in romantic comedies because it's such a safe space where at the end, you know that everyone will be okay in that moment, and grow from there. And there will be the life that they live beyond that. But I think it's such an amazing safe space to explore these topics in that can be harder.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. I think it just one is representation matters, like to see
Mhm.
yourself falling in love because for so long it's been white cis heterosexual middle class upper middle class, you know, who can fall in
Yeah.
love and everyone else minorities like all together we're not allowed. Like I'm Puerto Rican
Mhm.
and that was not allowed to. You know,
Yeah.
there's a stereotype. And so I think reading romance is actually giving you permission to look at yourself and to look at is this a possibility and to look at opportunities to see like, oh, this is healthy or oh, this is how I communicate, like, you know, to my partner.
Completely.
Like,
Yes.
you know, real or you can have anxiety and be lovable or depression and be lovable or fat and be lovable. And
Yeah.
so it's giving you permission to have that life. And so I think that happily ever after gives you that, you know, everything's gonna be okay, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Beautifully said.
and I think I love, well, let's talk about lunar love because lunar love actually brings in conversations about like, you know, grief and loss and love and and not and having plans and then realizing like those plans are out the door, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so talk to us with elevator pitch of lunar love.
Sure. So Lunar Love is a romantic comedy about two Chinese zodiac matchmakers who have very different approaches to how they help people find love. One does it more traditionally, and this is Olivia Huang Christensen. She is taking over Lunar Love, which is her Popo's Chinese zodiac matchmaking business. And in Chinese, Popo means maternal grandmother. Then we have LA's most eligible bachelor, Bennett O'Brien, who is doing things a little bit more modern. And he is starting a dating app about the Chinese zodiac. The two go head to head in a competition to make a bet about whose methods work best. And they will pair each other up on dates, and the first person to fall in love loses.
And romance ensues. And
Romance
there's a good
ensues.
enemies to lovers. There's a good bakery scene where they're
Yeah.
like fighting for a baked goods, you
Yes.
know. So you're gonna feel like you're gonna if you're hungry, you're gonna be like, okay, I need to go get these food right now. You know,
Absolutely.
you
It's
know,
true.
like it's gonna give you. But I think it's important. Olivia's journey was important to see because you broke her down. Like everything that she thought that she knew was like completely wrong, you know.
Hmm.
And it's very telling as someone who's like who had an idea like this is how love should work and this is what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm a career woman and like love is not acceptable and blah 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 the story that we tell ourselves and then realizing like having the hero comes in and be like, no, like it's wrong. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's she does a lot of stretching in this of her own beliefs
Yeah.
and you know, sometimes we just need that patient person with us to help us. And I know
Yeah.
that for me, that's been my husband, who's been very patient with me in our and I think I've been patient with him too. But like having that is sometimes really important. And Bennett is definitely that for Olivia and all of her horse traits, really. She definitely embodies many of them.
Yeah. So what was the process of like, because we hear, we get to know the Chinese zodiac and like all inside out, we know even everyone's Chinese zodiac name and like the horoscope. What was the process
Yeah.
of researching and then discovering this part of the Chinese culture that is so important for the culture that, as you know, many Americans may be completely ignorant about it.
Sure. The research process was so interesting because I had grown up learning about the Chinese zodiac, but on a more surface level. So I knew what my traits were, and I am year of the horse. I knew what my sisters, my parents were, and we celebrate Lunar New Year and learn a little bit more that way. But I got to do a deep dive into the other animal signs and learning about things like ascendants and the elements, and all of that was so interesting because a lot of pieces of cultural elements in this book I learned by writing the book. And that is really meaningful for me as a mixed race Chinese American to learn more about my culture in that way. So another big reason why writing is so important to me is to have that not only outlet, but a way to learn more about my culture. And so doing a lot of that research was eye-opening. It sparked conversation with family. And it was just really important to me as a person trying to learn more about my culture. I do a lot of that through food and cooking, but
Mhm.
learning more about the traditions and kind of the parties and celebrations was so special.
Yeah, it sounded so special. And like there are things I can see, like, you know, if you follow horoscopes and stuff like that, you see some of the ideas, but I think it's so intricate, like, you know, what your year define and like Olivia's
Yeah.
take on matchmaking, like how matchmaking should work, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
what years like you gotta look at this red flags or green flags or people and it sounded fascinating. Like it just immerses you in that world and it gets you an idea like, oh, like there's a whole other way of thinking, you know.
Totally. And the Chinese zodiac is so interesting. It's a belief system and it's based on the lunar calendar. And
Mhm.
so it really goes back thousands of years and it's really rooted in the way that a lot of matchmaking was done. And
Mhm.
so I found that particularly interesting for Olivia, who is more traditional and but also struggling with, and this is again where it's very meaningful, is trying to honor those traditions while modernizing, but also because a lot of her struggles is not thinking that she's enough and not really knowing a lot about family. And there's a scene where she's talking to her popo about traditions evolving and learning about Cookie Day, for instance, for her
Mhm.
sister's wedding. And we just don't know these things inherently. It's not just something we're born knowing. And so even when we spend a lot of time with family and friends and learning about our culture, you can still go a lot of years of your life really not knowing a whole lot about it. And
Mhm.
so that's Olivia's struggle and wanting to really make sure Lunar Love is a success, partially because she loves her popo and wants to keep the legacy going, but also because if she doesn't, it'll almost prove in a way that she's not enough. So she thinks. And so she really will go great lengths to keep it alive.
Yes. Oh, gotta read this book. It's so good. What are you working next? Are you working on anything new?
I am. I'm working on my second book. I am in revisions for it, and that'll be out in 2024.
Okay.
And so it grapples a lot with like fate and soulmates. And so all really fun topics. And I love these characters so much and their whole storyline. So I'm really excited to share more. Yeah, I'm going to make it through these edits.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited for this. And you're an autobiography author, so I'm excited
Oh
for
my
what
gosh, thank you. That's so
you
nice.
write. So it is so good. So, all right, so let's chat some book recommendations. What kind of books do you tend to read?
I tend to read, I do a lot of romance, romantic comedy reading. I also really love nonfiction.
Mm.
And then kind of just more fiction. I've been lately trying to get into more thrillers, and I have a whole list growing for that. But that's not one that I think I sprinkle that in occasionally.
Yeah, it's so good. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
need a murder book or a serial killer just to
Right?
cleanse the palate. You know? Like sometimes the
Exactly.
husband did it, maybe the right way to go. You know?
When you're reading a lot of romance, you're right. Like thriller becomes a palate cleanser.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes you just need a con artist or a husband did it. Like the husband was like gonna die, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Just had to happen.
Just happened. So it's all good. So do you have any books to recommend our listeners to pick up?
Yes, I have a few. So I recently read The Charmed List by Julie Abe. It's a YA magical romance, and I really adored it. It was just a really fun escape, and the magic world that Julie just built was so creative, and I thought it was really immersive. And so I don't read a lot of like fantasy or magical realism, but this one was just so charming and just totally engulfed me into the story. And this main character, Ellie, creates an anti-wallflower list so that she can complete this over the summer. And when something goes wrong on it, getting revenge on her ex-best friend, Jack, she has to take a road trip with him to a magical convention to right wrongs. So
Ooh,
I love a list in a book.
yeah.
And I thought the romance was really sweet. And the magic element was really fun.
Well, listen to books. So you had me at that.
Yeah. Um, Another one was X's and O's
Mhm.
by Emilia, and that one was just really funny. I thought it was such a fun premise. And that one is perfect for crushes and Valentine's Day, which is around the time that I read it. And there's a really fun twist on the second chance romance trope. The main character, Tara, goes through her ex-boyfriend list to see if she can spark a second chance romance with any of them.
Mhm.
And her grumpy sweetheart roommate, Trevor, kind of helps her along this journey. So just so much fun from start to finish.
Oh my God, that sounds so much fun for sure.
Yeah. Another one is I'll Stop the World by Lauren Foman. And I just was so on edge reading this. It is multiple point of view story with a diverse cast. It's enthralling, smart, humorous, and it's time travel. So I thought that was really interesting. There's romance, tragedy, mystery in it. And she weaves together all of these storylines in a way that keeps you so emotionally and mentally engaged. That one comes out April 1. And yeah, you have these multiple timelines of kind of, you're not quite sure what's happening when, and that's the point. And it is truly a mind twist.
Oh my gosh, I'm adding that for the
Yeah,
TBR.
that's so good.
Yeah, we had a mind twist. So
Love a mind twist. Another one is The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. And in that one, on one day, everyone receives a box with a string in it, and that string tells you how long you have to live, like how long your life is. And some people open the box, some people don't. Some people find out how long they have, others choose not to. And it becomes a very divisive topic in the world, which feels very relevant to our world, just with a slightly different twist on it. And it affects everyone slightly differently. And this is explored through varying perspectives. They're told through different perspectives. And so I felt so emotionally wrecked, and it made me just think about life in a totally different way. And I read this in the beginning of the year, which I'm like, it's a new year. And then I just kind of got destroyed. So it is very thought provoking and thrilling, very well written. And I just read it with somebody because then you can talk about it.
all right,
I'm just still waiting for my husband to read it.
I'm adding this one for sure. I need you to have me emotionally wrecked as someone who
Yeah.
just went to therapy and was like, you got permission to cry. I need
Yes.
books that make me cry.
Yes. I cried at this one. And I like to say, I say this too. I don't often cry, like shed tears. I'll get very sad, but it's hard to actually shed tears. And so this one definitely made me shed tears.
Yeah.
And then another one is Jana Goes Wild by Farah Heron. And that one comes out in May. And it's an emotional second chance romance in such a stunning setting. And I really loved Kamala Knows Best. And so I love this character, Jana, who we see as a side character in the other book. Now we get our own book, which I thought was very excited about. And she wants to be seen as this vibrant person for this job that she's trying to get. And so she creates a letting loose list, which kind of ties back full circle to the anti-wallflower list. Clearly, I love a list. And so in this, she's more introverted as a character. And I felt like I related to her in many different ways. And so her kind of coming out of her shell and learning how to do that and to be more kind of social with people, I thought was very relatable for this character and myself. And Farah always does an amazing job with her books. They're totally immersive.
Oh my gosh, I'm adding this one. I actually do have an arc for this one. Like I'm a huge fan of Farah's writing.
Yeah.
Just like fun. I don't know. They're just fun rom-coms.
They are really fun.
So
agree.
We're adding it. So Lauren, tell us where you can find you online.
So on my website, you can find me at laurenkangjessen.com. I'm on Instagram mostly at Lauren K. Jessen, and then on Twitter as well, sometimes Laura at Lauren K. Jessen. And then I also have a newsletter called Past, Present, Future, where I share things that evolve over time and provide book updates and what I'm reading, watching, cooking. And that is on Substack at Lauren K. Jessen. It's called Past, Present, Future.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren, for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. This was so fun.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other romance recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. Did you know you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libro.fm, you can pick up more than 250,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company, you know the name, but you'll be part of a different story, one that supports your local community. If you're new to audiobooks, there's a perfect way to squeeze into more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libro.fm app while you do your chores, walk your dog, relax at home. The What to Read Next podcast has a special offer for our listeners. Get 2 audiobooks on Libro.fm for the price of 1 with your first month of membership. Use code What to Read Next. This offer is only valid for new members in Canada and the US. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.